Hello and welcome to Fratello Talks. I'm your host Nacho. This week I'm joined by my guests
Timo
and
RJ.
And this week we are going to be talking about some hidden gems under 5K. We've been a little bit inspired by our discussion a couple of weeks ago about watch prices. And as we see those rise, obviously, like a lot of other people, we look into what's available in the pre-owned space. And there's a lot out there, a lot of very interesting watches on offer. And we're going to look at 9 of them today. We've each made a selection of 3 under 5K. But before we do that, let's look at 3 other watches, the ones on our wrists. Timo, what's on your wrist today?
Today I'm wearing the Fratello Reverso. It's the monophase version, which I prefer because the dimensions are a little bit different to the duophase. And I quite like it on the strap that it comes with. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Is that a Casa Fagliano leather?
Exactly, that's
very
the
nice.
one.
Very nice.
I try to put it on different leather straps every now and then, but it feels like the Reverso with the Casa Fagliano strap is just... It has the perfect mix of being dressy while also being casual. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very true to that to its origins in some way. It has that sporty feel. It looks like something, maybe like a saddle leather kind of thing.
Yeah.
And have you committed to it? Have you engraved anything?
Not yet. So this is one thing I was really contemplating. What do you put on the back? But once it's like it's two. Once it's there, it's there.
Exactly.
I'd like to put something Fratello themed on it, but let's see.
Okay.
Do you have the matching polo player boots?
Not yet.
Okay. From Casa Fagliano.
Yes, exactly.
Hey, coming soon. And RJ, what is on your wrist?
Also a Fratello Talks.
Oh,
a very old one. I can't remember the production year. It's somewhere 70s, I think. It's 70, a very early master quartz. And it has a movement from Girard-Perregaux, the 352. Mm-hmm. And it's a quartz movement right after the Beta 21.
Okay.
So the Beta 21 quartz movement was a development done by a lot of brands. If I'm not mistaken, 21 Swiss brands, including like Patek Philippe, Jaeger, but also Girard-Perregaux. And if you open the watch, it's really like an old quartz movement. A lot of plastic in there, and it's big and thick. And that's also why the watch is quite...
it's relatively chunky, right?
Chunky, yeah. But I bought it because of the beautiful dial. It has this vertical brushed finishing, nice hour markers, and a very weird...
the minute track. Kind of squiggling. Very cool. Yeah. Very, very cool. How big is the case? 37?
I think 38 or 39.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, very, very cool with the applied logo at 12. It's a
bought it a few years ago on during a watch trade show here in the Netherlands.
Oh yeah, the Ricketic.
The Ricketic.
Shout out to the Ricketic.
Exactly. And I just based on looks, I picked it from someone's table and bought it.
And you have it on one of our straps, right? That's one of the gray
GLC, I think.
Yeah, I don't want to do a product placement, but yes, and it's an awesome strap. So go to the shop.
It looks great with a gray silver dial. It's a good match.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this watch. I don't wear it very often, but it's a fun piece.
Yeah, very cool. A bit of a hidden gem itself.
Yeah.
So very on theme. I'm wearing my Omega Seamaster reference 2254. It's a watch that I do wear a lot, and I think. I don't get tired of doing so. And now I have the 2 half links. So the half link has been secured, which means I can wear it comfortably on the bracelet, which is nice. I think I'll still continue to swap it from the bracelet onto other options. But it is nice to be able to wear it comfortably, and due to there not being any micro adjust, just a dive extension. It was a bit tricky, but this now hits the spot.
Awesome. So, it looks great on that bracelet.
Yeah, thanks.
Do you prefer it on the bracelet or on the strap?
I could go either way, to be honest. Like, now that the bracelet is sized, I can say that it's fantastic. Like, I really don't mind that it's obviously not up to par with the quality of today's bracelets. I mean, I think Omega has made quite a lot of progress in that department, but it doesn't feel uncomfortable, and it has a little bit of taper, not a lot. The clasp is nice and slim and comfortable, and I like it a lot.
Yeah. I like it on your wrist. I didn't like it when I saw the shots of you putting it up on Instagram.
Right.
But seeing it in person, I like it on the bracelet. But somehow this feels like this is a Nacho NATO watch to me. So
yeah, for sure.
I want it back on a NATO, man.
Yeah, it was always when it was on the bracelet. It was always just the periods in between it being on a NATO where it belongs. So okay, fantastic. But let's start with our picks. So like I said before, we've each picked 3 watches that we think are hidden gems under 5K. So shall we start with you, RJ?
Yeah.
What have you got as your first pick?
Surprise, surprise. It's a gold watch. And
Under 5K.
Let's start with a gold watch. Yeah, under 5K. And I picked the Ebel Sport Classic chronograph. Sometimes also known as the 1911, but with the El Primero movement. And I have one in gold steel with a gold steel bracelet. But you also had them in full gold, also with a full gold bracelet, but also on a leather strap. And you can find those versions on a leather strap with the El Primero movement in gold. And then you have them with the blue dial, white dial, black dial, and so on. And you can find them easily under 5K.
Wow.
And I think that's a lot of watch for 5K, for under 5K.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, El Primero movement in a full gold case. I mean, I guess how much are they with the bracelet?
Yeah, over 10.
Over 10, right. So that kind of doubles the price there.
Yeah, at least. Because I have been looking at those as well, because my watchmaker has one. And I think when he bought it, it was like 5K euros perhaps. But today, I think it's easily 12, 13K if you find like a nice set with box papers. It's easily
lovely.
that amount. But yes, it's a beautiful watch. It's 39 millimeter or also 38. And the El Primero movement is wonderful. I mean, Ebel today is probably not even able to service the watch anymore. But because it's a Zenith movement, you can go to a Zenith watchmaker and have it serviced or repaired. Spare parts are out there. So that's not a big issue. And lovely watch. Yeah. It's definitely on my wish list.
Abel has been making a bit of a comeback, at least having an eye on social media.
Yeah.
I think that there was this Miami antique show that has a big watch section to it, and a lot of the people there were sort of hyping up Abel's and looking at some of them with mother of pearl colored dials as well. But that's sort of it's part of that very 90s organic aesthetic, right? That's sort of a little bit what this has, but in a much more sort of pronounced way.
Yeah, the watches are a little bit older, so these models they started in the 84, 85, something like that. Yeah, the chronographs, that is, the non-chronos were earlier, and they sold till well into the 90s.
Yeah, it carried on into the 90s, and it's a bit like those Tag Heuers with the love 'em or hate 'em bracelets.
Yeah.
I think there's a relationship there. That I think one of the designers of Ebel went to Tag Heuer and he made those SEL bracelets.
Interesting.
Yeah, from the top of my head. So I can be wrong, but something something similar.
The Link bracelets. I think it's a Link watch from Tag Heuer, right?
Yeah, SEL. That's the name, and then the bracelet is the Link bracelet. Yeah.
It was god awful in the past because
I loved them in the 90s. Yeah,
God, I like the new iterations though because it's more angular and it's sharper. Yeah, and it's actually a bracelet that's at least something unique about it.
Yeah. It's not like a classic H-link. It's not a oyster style bracelet. It's at least something a little bit more unique.
But if you look at those Ebel bracelets from the Sport Classic chronograph models, they. I think that's also where Moser, for example, got the inspiration from with this.
No doubt, for the Streamliner.
And I also discussed it with Ed Melan from Moser, and he was nodding. So, wonderful watch. So that's my first pick. It's in gold, and you can also find a steel one with the bracelets or steel gold one. They're much cheaper, like half of that, like 2.5K. Perhaps if you want to have a full set, it's a bit more. But the full gold is.
It's a lot of watch
on my list. It's very a lot of watch for the money, cool. Definitely. Yeah,
very, very cool. Nice. Timo, what's your first pick?
So my first pick is a watch that is actually almost available at retail for 5K.
Okay.
I guess if you negotiate a bit, you might be able to get it. It's the Hermes H08. It's a watch that I believe flies under the radar because people don't like talking about watches from Hermes that much just yet. Right. But our very own Dave Sargent bought one, I think half a year ago or something. He has it, I think it's a black one on is it a black or steel one on a orange rubber strap?
I believe so. I'm not exactly sure. We'll put up a picture of Dave's, but not entirely sure. But it's a good-looking watch.
It is, and it's Hermès knows what they're doing. I think Dan recently went to the manufacturer, and he was quite impressed that, oh, look, they're actually really seriously building watches, and it's not just a fashion accessory of some sort. So Hermès is taking this seriously. Also, last year when I met them at Watches and Wonders, it was quite impressive, the stuff that they pulled off. And it's clear that there's a lot of also passion in their watchmaking environment. So I think the watch flies under the radar. You can have it on chrono. I think it starts at roughly 3K already if you get it on a rubber strap. The ceiling's the limit, of course. I quite like the rose gold version, black dial, rose gold, black strap, but it goes for 15, 16 or something. So that's way beyond. But I think it's still a watch you don't see it often. You very rarely see it. It has a good movement. It's nicely done. Yeah, that's my pick.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it's a real eye catcher. I remember seeing the I believe it was the orange version of the chronograph it was some sort of carbon composite. That was last year at Watches and Wonders. And it's nice that you have something like that, very sporty and very almost rugged, actually, from a fashion brand, right? Still something rugged, still something with a lot of credibility. Yeah. And then at the same time, they presented the I believe it was a watch that used these small beads of gold. It was like 100 plus beads of gold
horse heads
to depict a horse head. So you have a bit of like the wistful métier d'art kind of vibe, and then you also have something that's a little bit more sportive, yet distinctive and interesting and well built, of course.
So I think of it a little bit like Cartier, but with a broader range, because Cartier, everything is super luxurious, like the Santos to a degree, yes, is rugged, but I feel like Hermès has a broader range. They do like these really, really artsy pieces and more rugged pieces, and you don't see them. And that's why I think it's a hidden gem, more or less.
I think you don't see them because people who buy Hermès watches, I think most of them are into the brand. So they have their Hermès bags and leather goods and so on, and then they see the watches. I think the same applies to Chanel and Louis Vuitton watches, for example. And I think they try to step out of that. Yeah. Exactly. So with the H08 and also Louis Vuitton with the new tambour, I think they try to step out of that bubble, which is a really big bubble, I believe. Yeah. But they also try to get something from the watch enthusiasts' pie. And the H08 is a nice pick, yeah.
I saw one in the wild. I saw a gentleman. It was on a KLM flight to Oslo, and he was sitting next to me, and he was wearing an H08, the blue version.
Yeah, it's also nice. Yeah. I think it's titanium.
I think so. It's like blued titanium, which is also just cool. I mean, they're doing great stuff, and not just at a superficial level. So it's very cool to see that. Nice. So my first pick is. It's not this watch, but it's very similar.
Okay.
So I've gone with an Omega Seamaster from the same generation as the 2254, but it's the 2538.20, which is also known as the Great White. GMT.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
So yeah, that's to me that's a brilliant watch. It has all the appeal that the 2254 has, but then it has a bit of this 16570 white dial with a slim red GMT hand. It's a Flyer GMT. It's a 41 millimeter case by I believe 13.5, so just a little bit thicker than the dive watch. But for that little bit of thickness, you trade it off for not having the helium escape valve crown, which some people love, some people hate. I don't mind it. I actually like it.
For me, it's part of the design. Meanwhile,
so it could be a bit of a shame, but it's also nice as it's a GMT watch. But you still get 300 meters of water resistance. Yep. So it's very much a dive watch. It has a dive bezel. And then it has this, or is it a 24-hour bezel? It might be a 24-hour bezel. I think it is a 24-hour
bezel.
Yeah. So sadly, it doesn't have a dive bezel.
Probably that's
a bit of a minus in my books. Yeah. But hey, it's still a fantastic watch. It's got the caliber 1128, I believe, inside. So it's and those you can get all day for on the low end 3,000, but in the meantime now they're up to around 4,400, 4,500. Yeah. So those are still, I would say, a bit of a hidden gem. You don't see them a lot.
No. I've been looking into those because in hindsight, I feel that back in the day, I should have gone for that model.
Right.
It's my favorite Seamaster 300M version. But they're quite rare.
Yeah.
You don't see them that often. You see the black dial version a little bit more.
Yeah, that was the 50th
The 50th anniversary
right?
of the Seamaster line, and they also did the white one. And for me, the white one is beautiful because it's it's something different, very different from the blue Bond version, the 253 1.80, and it has the GMT function. It's a true GMT indeed, or Flyers GMT, and it's an ETA-based movement, and it keeps the case quite thin compared to the current range of 300 amps. And I've been looking into them, but I have to say, full set, it's more like 4.5 in a very good condition.
Yeah, exactly.
You can see them on Chrono 24 for less, for example, in Japan.
Yeah.
But then you have to add the import.
There's one in Sweden for just over 3K. That's a tempting one.
I'm leaving this
in good
podcast
condition
right now.
yeah,
I'll
exactly. I'm going to buy it right now on the no. But it's a good one. So that's my first pick.
Nice,
that's a nice one.
Today. Yeah, thanks. RJ, what is your second pick of the draw?
My second pick. I was a little bit in doubt. I'm looking at my notes in the distance. I was in doubt between a Breitling and a Chrono Swiss, but I think you also picked a Breitling, so I went for the Chrono Swiss.
I didn't pick a Breitling in the end.
Okay,
so
then I do 4 watches. I do a double. I do 2 now. Very quickly. I'll say Breitling Navitimer 806, vintage. I think you have to do your homework. Very much so, but I think there are enough resources out there to that enable you to do the homework. So that's very short. Is very short. My other second pick, is the Chrono Swiss Opus.
Okay,
it's a Chrono Swiss from I think also 90s or early 2000s. It's a chronograph, and it's skeletonized, and it was a very nice entry way to get into skeletonized watches. And Chrono Swiss has this more or less Breguet kind of style.
Yeah, the K shape a little bit. Yeah.
And I have a Chrono Swiss. I have a regulator, automatique, also a very early one. And the Opus was out of my league back then because it was quite pricey. But these days you can find them under 5K.
Okay.
And beautiful, beautiful watch. I think it's based on a Valjoux movement. So servicing should also be no issue. And still also Chrono Swiss can do it. And wonderful watch. It really looks nice.
Yeah, they recently made a bit of a comeback with the skeletonized. I don't know if it was a chronograph, but they had a recent model, and I remember seeing it on the brand's Instagram page on a I believe like a sailcloth or Cordura camouflage strap, which was quite a nice look. I have to say, like this otherwise quite elegant watch, still chunky but somewhat elegant, and then on a camouflage strap. I think it was a cool move and a really good reissue. And I think that going with the neo vintage option is gets you a lot of bang for the buck.
Yeah, so when Chrono Swiss was sold, so the founder Gert R. Lang, he passed away last year, but he sold the company to the Epstein family, and they revived the brand. They made it more popular. They made it a bit more like for a broader audience.
Okay.
And what you see in last 10 years or so is that they come with different colors. So you have these blue coated cases, a lot of different color codes and so on.
It's quite flashy.
It's very flashy.
Purple. There was a purple one as well.
Yeah. Personally, I prefer the older ones because they look a bit more conventional, I would say.
Even the one that you picked now, the Opus, I think it's in the name. It's quite outgoing already.
That was very outgoing at the time, but
without the colors.
Exactly.
So it feels like it's still, it's a bit more like Breguet. It feels like a flashy Breguet, still in a good way.
Yeah.
And the new ones, for me personally, they're a bit too loud.
Yeah. But some people like them, and they have some nice models in the collection. But the Opus for me is very nice. Yeah. They had beautiful watches at the time. They also, I remember, they had the Delphis.
Yeah, Delphis.
Super nice, and they had this rectangular watch, which was a Digiteur, I think. So it was a mechanical watch with like a digital display. Super cool. So there are really some gems from Chrono Swiss to find. Yeah.
I think that's a good tip in general to say go look at sort of late 90s, early 2000s Chrono Swiss, because there's a lot of interesting stuff out there.
Yeah.
Very cool. Timo, your second pick.
Second pick. So the first pick was a watch that is available at retail at the moment, almost for 5K. So I thought the second pick is one that you have to get on a secondary market,
right?
Because it was recently discontinued, and that is the Tudor Heritage Chrono. It's a watch that I actually own. It was the watch that was introduced in 2010 at Basel World, and was sort of the introduction of the new Tudor. So it was the comeback of the brand, more or less. And I think they did a lot of things right with that watch. It's harkened back to the Monaco, to the big block that they had in the 70s. The design is quite truthful to what they had, but modernized in a very tasteful way. The watch sits incredibly well on the wrist. It's a bit, I think the watch was overseen or overlooked in the past because if you just look at the specs, you would think, oh, it's 42 millimeter watch, lug to lug is quite lengthy, it's quite thick.
Right.
But it's not there. If you put it on the wrist, the watch, it wears quite nicely. It's a Tudor. It's well built. It has 150 meters, I think, worth of water resistance. It's really a go anywhere, do anything kind of watch for me, with a bit of a special something to it, because it's not just the boring old chronograph. It has screw-down pushers. It has a bit of color on the dial. You have 3 variations. You get it in black, gray, or in blue. The blue one specifically.
That's the Monte Carlo, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Monte Carlo, the blue one specifically, man, that watch is colorful, but in a good way. It's so the watch ticks so many boxes. Yeah. It was, I think it was discontinued earlier last year.
Yeah, I think so. Quietly discontinued.
Disappeared.
In favor of the Black Bay Chrono, which is an interesting move because I think in terms of interest and sort of like heritage and that kind of thing, I think it's so much more interesting, the chronograph, the heritage chrono.
It is so interesting. The watch, it has quirkiness to it, but just the right amount. I love the watch. It's
2 years before the Black Bay, right?
Yeah.
I think
they came in 2012. And I think in 2012 was also that. So they introduced it in 2010 and it was very popular. Yeah. It was quite stunning that they came with that watch. But they were still not on the Black Bay train because I think 1 year later they came with the Ducati series again and so on.
Oh yeah.
And in 2012 they came with the Black Bay. Yeah. I think that was also the year or the year after that they opened up again in the US market. Yeah. Because they discontinued delivering to the
or something.
To the US market. I think that was their the thing that changed everything for Tudor. But those, so everyone is talking about those Black Bays, but I think it started earlier in 2010 with those chronographs.
Yeah, that's truly the start of like modern Tudor as we know it now.
Exactly. So for me, that watch marks a milestone, basically. So that is quite nice. It goes back to a super cool design that they had in the 70s. And that was a design that differentiated them from Rolex already. Because back then, Tudor really was, hey, let's take Rolex parts, let's make a Tudor Submariner or what have you. Yeah. But the Heritage Chrono that they did, or not the Heritage Chrono, the one that they did back then, the original.
The big block.
The big block. Or the base plate, whatever you want. There's a couple of nicknames. Yeah. The watch really was a unique design that showed, hey, Tudor can stand on its own. Yeah. And that's why I thought it's also the perfect pick for the revival of Tudor as a brand as a whole and restarting the brand. And it's such a cool watch. And nowadays, I think it goes for like 3.5K on chrono, depending on the condition. I'm assuming it will go up. The watch deserves it. So get one.
For sure. Yeah, 3.5 is a really good price for that. Yeah, I have to say. Yeah, very cool. My second pick, I've gone with something a little bit out of left field, more or less. It's a Girard-Perregaux. And it's a F1-047, which is the Ferrari chronograph. And I'm specifically aiming for the reference 4955, which is the 40 millimeter aluminum cased model. Those are there around that price. There's not a lot of them out there. I've seen 2 for around 3K. I think some of those might have been slightly older listings. There is one available for 3K, but it might be one that becomes a little bit trickier to keep under the 5K price point. And incredibly rare, but a really cool watch. It's got a carbon fiber dial. It has a bit of this Chopard Mille Miglia charm. It doesn't have a Ferrari logo on the front, which I like. I prefer that it just says Girard-Perregaux. Yeah. And then it has this red text that says F1-047. And it's just, it's a very cool chronograph, closed case back. And then the fact that it's aluminium. I saw one last year also at Watches and Wonders. There was a gentleman sitting in the press lounge, and I thought it was the titanium model, which would be then my compromise if this one's not available. Titanium's also great. And he said, but it's not the titanium model. feel it, and then you really feel that it's incredibly light. I believe it's around 60 grams, and just very, very cool. It's a proper motorsport themed watch done right, with that real carbon fiber dial and classic 369 layout and 40 millimeters, very wearable. And a bit of an oddball, but I like it.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because you have the Tag Heuer Formula One, right? What is it that you have?
I had a Tag Heuer F1 ages ago, but that was the little diver, the little 34
exactly.
millimeter.
The flimsy one. But anyway, I thought it is like it's a fun combination, more or less. Those
two. It could be
F1 watches.
Yeah, exactly. No, I sold that one a little while back. It was just a little too small for a diver, and the plastic bezel and everything. I thought, yeah, it wasn't one to stay in the collection.
Super quirky watch. So.
Yeah, but the full lume dial is cool. Full lume dial is always really great.
I think at the time, Gérard Perregaux was also a good fit for Ferrari. Later on, they went to Panerai. That was a bit of a weird fit.
Oh yeah,
except it's both Italian. And then later on, or today, they're with Hublot, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yeah, and Gérard Perregaux meanwhile with Aston Martin.
Yeah,
which is it's a good combination, but you'd expect maybe a British watch brand to take over.
Car and watch combinations are also a bit. It doesn't really work in most cases, I would say. But I think this Gérard Perregaux with Ferrari was nice. Yeah.
And also Richard Mille with Ferrari.
True.
Yeah,
and there's Bugatti has also done some things.
Yeah, many things, IWC and AMG. So there are a lot of watch and car combinations, like official collabs. Yeah. But it's not very successful, I would say. But this was, the Gérard Perregaux was nice with Ferrari, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's a super unique watch. So
exactly. And also a little bit more subtle, because there were some models that had the Ferrari logo on the dial. And that to me, it feels a bit like one of those, a pair of those Puma driving shoes with the rounded heel that are just a little too, it's like, I get it if you're driving, but come on. No, not throwing any shade at anybody who loves those shoes, right? If you have them and you love them, then go all the way. But,
or not.
Exactly. Perfect. So before I get myself into more trouble, RJ, what is your third and final pick?
Third and, fourth.
Kind
choice.
Of fourth.
Yeah.
Cheetah.
Yeah, sorry.
We'll let you get away with that. I mean, the got to have a bit of Breitling in there.
Exactly. It's Omega. I know you also picked Omega, but... besides Speedmasters, it's a bit of not a secret, but I'm not that open about it or loud about it, is that I also collect constellations, and from 1952 to modern ones. And I think under 5K, you can find beautiful vintage Omega constellations in steel, but also in gold, full gold or gold capped. I have one. It's a first reference, the 2648, which is in. I have one in steel. It's beautiful. It's a really bumper automatic, nice. So it doesn't have the full rotor, but I think that it bumps and feels a bit clunky on the wrist. But it
has like two
nice
springs. It almost looks like something out of a cartoon, right? It's this weight that bounces off these two springs.
Exactly. Yeah. Hammerautomat, as they say in Germany. And later on in 55 or 56, they changed to like the rotor as we know it today. But those early ones are nice. The 2852 you can find, but also the 168005 in full gold. You can find them in good condition below 5K, sometimes even with a gold bracelet, original gold Milanese bracelet. But I think that's a lot of watch for the money. It's a dress watch. It's 34 or 34.5 millimeter, and super nice movements. As said, I have a few, and I only have to pick them up from the safe and they start running. Yep. It's really nice, and the movements look beautiful. Copper finished, so this nice red color.
Yeah, those are
the movements
really beautiful.
And you have them with the pipe pen dials. You have with the dome dials, and I like them with the arrow-shaped hour markers. But you also have them with Onyx hour markers, Deluxe Constellation Deluxe. You have the Grand Lux Constellation. So you have so many different variations out there. You also have to do your homework a little bit. There are a lot of redials out there. But yeah, those are beautiful dress watches.
For sure.
And the Constellation feels like it has the right kind of playfulness with the different elements. Like you said, like Onyx indices and so on.
Very rich dials.
And it almost feels to me that the Constellation should have been Omega's competitor for the Datejust.
Or Day-Date. The full gold Constellations back then were more expensive than the Day-Dates. So that changed over time. But Those early ones from the 50s and 60s are definitely worth checking out if you like a nice dress watch. And I also like the later ones, also the Manhattans and so on. But these are super nice dress watches, and I think dress watches, they have a little bit of a comeback right now, I feel. They're very thin, small. You can play with leather straps, and like you say, they're very rich dials. So
it's a classic form, right? It's this sort of 34 and a half, 35 sort of dress watch size, but with a little bit of extra something, right? It's a bit like this Patek Anti-Magnétique.
Exactly.
That you, from a distance, you think, oh, it's just a classic 34 millimeter dress watch. Yeah. And then you look closer, but there's just a little bit of extra something, right? Yeah. It stands out on the crown.
And they're all chronometer watches. Back in the day, Omega was very big with those observatory prices.
Right.
And for all the records they had, they put a star on the back. So you have the observatory thing, tower with the 8 stars, and it's like a medallion or emblem on the case back in gold often, and super nice storytelling to it, but great watches definitely.
Those case backs are gorgeous. You had the hippocampus on the Seamaster. Yeah, I have one of those from 1961. But the
observatory case back is super nice,
super cool.
And you could find them for around. They start around €1,000, and they go up quickly if it's in gold or depending on the condition.
Cool. Very cool. Nice. Timo, what is your third and final pick?
Last and final pick is Jaeger LeCoultre, or
there we go.
As we Germans say, Jaeger LeCoultre.
Or as Mike says, JJ LeCoultre.
There you go.
JLC.
JLC.
And,
that's how I get my hand out of the hot water. Just JLC all the way.
There you go. Jaeger LeCoultre. No, LeCoultre. The L is silent. I learned from Morgan.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, the JLC, it's a Nemo Fox vintage one. I looked up some of the models on Chrono 24, and I found a particularly nice one. It's a 14 karat gold case, a vintage model. It comes with the alarm functionality. I think it's always nice having a watch that does something that is quirky or unique to a degree. Hey, Jaeger LeCoultre, nothing much needs to be said about the brand at all. I quite like them. It's the understated watch nerd brand. Like if you're into watches, you get a JLC that's super nice. The gold case is nice. It has, I believe, the 825 caliber in there, the one that I looked at. Mm-hmm. So those are a bit delicate. So the older Memovox movements, calibers, you have to be a little bit careful. So those are not rugged watches, but hey, it's a super fun, nice dress watch with a brand with a rich history. For the one that I saw was $4.5K. Hey, there you go.
Yeah. For me, that's the iconic or classic complication for JLC, Memovox. Yeah. They have them in so many. The old ones are super nice, and later on they even did them in the master compressor ones.
True.
Yeah. You've been looking at recently. Yeah. And no, that's wonderful. Definitely. Good choice.
Proper hidden gem, as worn by Roger Sterling in the TV show Mad Men, I believe. Very, very cool watch and a great pick. I'm going to go with my third pick, which is a bit of a blanket pick. I have one in mind. We'll throw the picture up. But I was a bit inspired by the one of the recent releases done in collaboration with Montblanc, Minerva, and Collective Horology. They put together this really cool heritage chronograph, and so I went looking for Minerva chronographs online on Chrono 24, and essentially found a lot of very expensive options. I mean, the prices of these are up into around 30K or so for a lot of them, and anywhere in between. But you can get some under 5K that are really beautiful from the 1940s and 50s. Just incredibly nice watches. And again, it's one of those where asterisk, do your homework, make sure it's all good before you commit to it. But it's worth having a look at what's out there, and especially compared to the new prices of those watches. They mostly have Valjoux movements inside, but some beautiful watches available. There's one with a really beautiful creamy dial, which is the one I'm picturing right now, an incredibly sharp case with some beautiful chamfers, and just a really nice 3-register chronograph. That's my sort of blanket pick. Go have a look at vintage Minerva.
But I think that's a fun part. If you go vintage, you need to do your research.
Sure.
You cannot expect 100%. That you want to have a vintage watch and then you just go pick one and buy one.
Yeah.
the research is half of the fun.
Sure.
It's like you need to figure out, okay, what were the special elements that were different with those watches, what to keep in mind regarding conditions, service, and so on.
Yeah.
So it's part of the fun for me.
Or you just like how it looks and don't care whether it's a redial or not. But I would say as a collector, it does make sense.
Yeah.
It's important.
Every week when I see the Throwback Thursday article from Thomas Rasputinsky, I get a little bit jealous. I'm like, man, this guy's having so much fun.
Yeah.
Like the stuff he comes up with is just unbelievable. And every week from just a vintage Galet chronograph, beautiful stuff, to some of the Sakura watches that he's been looking at. He had one recently a couple weeks ago with a Swiss Army knife that folds out of the case. Like, it's just brilliant stuff.
But Minerva is a good pick. My stepbrother has one. It's a Minerva Pitagore with caliber 48, top of my head, from the 90s. You had them in 34 millimeter, which he has, and it looks a little bit like it's a bit of Calatrava vibes. But you also had them in 38, and you had military versions. Super nice watches, and they had they were bought, I think, early 2000s by this company, and they tried to make a very high end brand.
Right.
I think it never came to life, to be honest. And then Montblanc stepped in and bought Minerva.
Yeah, and they're doing some impressive stuff with the brand and with the movements, and just beautiful stuff to see. But the price tag is it reflects the the beauty of what's inside those watches. But yeah, vintage, a lot of fun to be had.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Definitely.
Nice. So let's wrap up with our comment of the week.
Did we have a comment?
We did have a comment. We had quite a bit of comments. Actually, this is going back to our "What's the Deal with Watch Prices" podcast. Obviously, we had a lot of.
I thought it was about the pants.
A lot of
the
feedback.
trousers from Morgan.
Morgan's short trousers. No, it's actually from Löwhagen 6984, who says, "Lovely conversation and perfect flow and pace among you three. Your weekly talks are highly appreciated and a quality podcast indeed."
And how much money did you pay the guy?
Oh, I can't mention that for compliance reasons, but yeah. No, some kind words from happy viewers and listeners. So always happy to hear it.
Every time there's also a comment from someone who says, "I love to watch this with my morning coffee."
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Exactly.
So extra shout out.
Shout out to that guy. Hope the coffee was delicious. And thank you guys for joining me. It was a great
very
chat.
Cheesy ending, man.
Yeah, we like to keep it cheesy here.
Keep the cheese up.
Exactly. Fantastic. Well, perfect. Yeah, thank you for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment below, and let us know what some of your hidden gems for under 5K might be. And as always, tune in next week for another episode of Fratello Talks. See you then.